you head out onto the water with your stand-up paddleboard, it's really important you plan your paddle to help ensure you and your paddling buddies have a fun and safe SUP session. Make sure you consider the following: the wind and the weather, your location, the tide or the river conditions, appropriate clothing, your personal flotation, communication and emergency, your equipment, and the correct leash. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about communication and emergency, and what to do if your paddle session doesn't go quite as planned. The water, wind, and weather are dynamic and changing environments, so even the best planning in the world, chances are at some point there will be an instance on the water when things don't go as planned. Wind can change direction, equipment can break, and paddlers can tire. Would you know what to do if things didn't go as planned? And would you be able to help in an emergency? By being aware, identifying these situations early, and having the knowledge and the equipment to prevent them from escalating, you can limit the severity of the problem and possibly help prevent an emergency out on the water. So what can you do? Solve and carry on. For an example, a member of the group starts to tire and struggles to paddle against the wind. By selecting a safe place to stop and having a drink, a snack, they can rest and hopefully enable themselves to continue. What happens if your paddle breaks? By carrying some emergency tape, you'll be able to fix that paddle, maybe even enough to get you back to land safely. This highlights the importance of being prepared and ensuring you take a few extra things in your dry bag on longer paddles, such as drinks and snacks and emergency tapes, and maybe even a spare paddle. Make sure to check out our equipment video to find out what essential stuff you should consider when you go out onto the water. Now let's look at some more examples. What else could you do? You could adapt and alter. For example, the bay where you're going to be paddling looks rougher than you'd expected. Find an alternative paddle location that's calmer and more enjoyable and safer. Another example is the wind picks up during your paddle, making it hard going. Maybe shorten your paddle down or change your route. But remember, if you do change your paddle location or your route, make sure you inform others so they don't worry when you don't arrive as you previously planned. Maybe you find yourself in a position where you're struggling to paddle back to the planned finish location. In this situation, you should aim to reach an alternative safe landing location. You may find yourself paddling in challenging conditions such as choppy waters, strong winds, so it's important you learn the necessary paddling skills before you get afloat, such as paddling on your knees, paddling prone, or maybe even how to tow others. You may even need to call help sometimes. There may be some situations in which you're unable to get yourself or others to safety by yourself. Maybe you have a paddler in your group that's injured, or the strong wind is blowing you offshore, making it impossible to paddle back. Try to identify your location on a map. Use what 3 words, use landmarks. If in the UK on the sea, call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard. If you're in the UK and you're in inland waters, also call 999, and depending on your requirements, they may send a number of emergency services. If you're close to shore, within sight of others, whistle the distress signal, wave your arms. Always remember though, your board is a large and buoyant platform and it's way more visible than a person in the water. So in an emergency, always stay with your board. Always tell someone where you're going to be going and when you plan to be back. And if those plans change for whatever reason, make sure you inform them. Definitely ensure your kit is in good working order and you reduce the chance of breakages and kit failure when you're out on the water. Dress appropriately for the weather and the possible changes in the weather so you've less chance of being caught out by it. If you're going to be reliant on your mobile phone in an emergency, make sure it's fully charged and in a waterproof phone case. If you're going to be taking a VHF, make sure you know how to use it. Definitely, if you're going to be planning longer paddles, check out other emergency equipment such as bivy bags, emergency survival shelters, first aid kits, all worth taking. If you stay aware of the wind and weather environment throughout your paddle, you'll have more chance of resolving the issue before it even becomes an emergency. We really hope you never have to self-rescue or call for help, but just in case, make sure you're familiar with what to do in an emergency and you have the necessary skills and equipment to keep you and your friends safe. Remember, it's always better to be safe than sorry. By changing your paddle, cutting your paddle short, or maybe not even launching at all if the conditions don't look ideal, is a much better option. We really hope you found this video informative and useful. Hopefully you now know more about what you can do to help you and your paddling buddies stay safe on the water and how you can call for help in an emergency. Please share this information with other stand-up paddleboarders to help keep everyone SUP safe out on the water.